And now we are going to go to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Keabile Tlhalerwa. Tlhalerwa is a lecturer at the University of Botswana, and he's the patron of the University of Botswana Environmental and Wildlife Club, I think they are called. He does a lot of work with young people, supporting them around engaging with climate action, with environment. And he's a scientist. And when it all comes down to it, a lot of this does have a lot, the foundation of it is the science. That's how we know we're in crisis. That's how we know our futures as young people and children are at risk. And that's how we know we must take action. And today we'll be speaking to Tlhalerwa will be speaking to us about exploring the science, Botswana's climate reality. We do have all of these different conversations that have been going, but what's the reality for Botswana? What does the science say? What does the science look? What does this, not only what does the science say, but what does that look like for us, Botswana?
Like she said, my name is Keabile Tlhalerwa. I'm a climatologist by training. I'm also a lecturer in environmental science. And I'm affiliated to the Global Change Institute, which is a climate model center at University of Witwatersrand in South Africa. And that's where I'm also doing my PhD. Okay. So we're going to explore the science and start with the Botswana climate reality. Maybe let me just start by making an introduction, just to mention that Botswana, as you all know, is a semi-arid country, largely because of its geographical location. It has got semi-wet and hot summers and dry, cool winters. And it also got a very high level of rainfall variability, which is modulated by the El Nino Southern Oscillation. And that makes Botswana the warmest, the second driest country in Southern Africa. Obviously, that's after Namibia. But in terms of being warm, I would say that it's the warmest. Okay. And because of this high rainfall variability, it's one of the world's most drought-prone countries. Since 1950, it has been experiencing multiple multi-year droughts which have been recorded. Okay. I'll probably just show a synopsis of the drought incidences that we have in Botswana. And drought, of course, is the most important extreme climate risk, which are associated with climate change, largely because it has got adverse impacts on agricultural production, in water resources, in both urban and rural landscapes. And it also impairs the rural economy and socio-cultural structures. And now, currently, because Botswana had highly reliable on climate-sensitive livelihoods, which include agriculture and varied product harvesting, and we also got an issue of economic diversification at national levels, and which means that opportunities for adaptation tend to be much lower than you'd expect for any country. Okay, and that will probably touch very briefly on that one. What you see there is an image, of course, also. Those are model outputs from the Global Change Institute. I've got a colleague there, Professor Engelbrecht, who have been working on this together, but it has since been published as well. And it just shows you Botswana there in the middle of the map, and just shows you the temperature extremes. So you can see these are different four models, and you can see that the different scenarios for 1 degree, 2 degrees, 3 degrees, 4 degrees. I'm not sure how most of you are familiar with the climate modeling scenarios, but this just shows you the model climate. And of interest, of course, is this picture here, the last one on the bottom right, which shows you the entire subcontinent is dark. And you can see that this dark color is centered mostly over Botswana and Namibia. I'm saying that they're the warmest in Southern Africa. And I think they're also probably going to be even warmest. Now, then that is the question is Botswana really on the verge of a tipping point, given its tipping elements, when you look at the extreme temperatures and what has been happening to the ecosystems. Now, if we share here, look what is happening. High temperatures above 40 degrees have been experienced in 2016 in particular. And those were the highest since 1944. That should be in 2016. I didn't mention that. We also have had record-breaking flash floods in 2010, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, and 2017. And also, all know, having Dam dried up in 2017, following severe droughts of 2014, in 2015, and 2015, 2016. This has been, it has dried up for the very first time since its construction. And we also have seen Lake Ngami desiccating or drying up, first in 1982, and then repeatedly in 2015, 2018, 2021. So those are some of the indicators which are really pointing to the possibility of some of our ecosystems actually on the verge of a tipping point. So, and 2018-2019 drought, as you all know, it resulted in the failure of 2/3 of the crops which had been planted in the whole of Botswana. And for the first time in Ngamiland, in northwestern Botswana, 4,000 cattle died because of the drought. And then we had flooding in 2020, which destroyed the railway line near Musetse in northeastern Botswana. And 60 wagons of a train carrying over 500 tons of salt derailed. You can see the picture on the left there. And then, of course, in the spring 2021, we had wildfires which killed 137 goats in the Kara district of southwestern Botswana. So those are some of the losses which were incurred, either because of flooding or because of fires or because of drought. Remember that fires themselves are not caused by climate change, but climate change sets up the conditions which are conducive to the widespread of fires, okay, especially drying up pasture, which easily get burnt, and then of course there's cascading, which affects the whole system. Now, and then somebody may ask you why is Botswana experiencing very high temperatures? What is causing that? And what are the dynamics? Well, we've got two major systems in Botswana which really control some of these extreme weather events. And these are obviously modulated by the El Nino circulation. The first one is what we call the Botswana High. This is simply a weather system. It's a high pressure system which forms mostly in summer. And it is the one which decides how often we receive rainfall, how many days or how many weeks should be there for the next rainfall to occur. So it simply separates the rainy days in a way. And it has becoming more persistent. And in the process, it also been attributed to the heat waves that we've been observing. So if you see the model outputs here, you can see the Botswana High, this red here, and then the Botswana High. You can see that it's mostly centered in the western half of Botswana most of the time, but there are times when it's weak, and there are times when it's tends to be very strong. So its strength, of course, determine how much rainfall we're going to get and how often. And then that one, of course, is a tropical temperate trough. These are just too technical. I don't think maybe most of you do understand about this unless maybe they've done a course on weather systems. But this triple T is mainly responsible for some of the flooding that does occur in Botswana, especially those cloud bands which you see in this image here. You can see the alignment. They bring a lot of rainfall over this country. You can just see the density of the clouds here. And these are just thunderstorms which can normally spread over the whole of Botswana. They normally move from the west to east. So it's more like a western trough, you can say that. So they tend to move to this area and then they cause a lot of flooding, lots of rainfall. And they become stronger when the La Nina is strong. So La Nina is also modulating that. So here you can see the projections, which shows you on this side here, these are basically temperatures, and you can see this shaded red here. You can see that in all cases, Botswana is not spared. So the first one, Botswana is partly covered. The second one, these are just 6 different models which can be projected to show our current climate. And you can see that almost the whole of Botswana is being affected by this kind of climate. So you've got a lot of drought, you've got a lot of heat, You've got fires there occurring, so somebody tried to warm himself during a heat wave. And this side of course, you've got the fire danger index, which is normally being shown even in weather forecast. So you can see that Botswana, especially the extreme western half of the country, is very vulnerable to fires. So fires are now they become a very important player in this whole game of climate change. Something that we need to be very careful about. So all of these are six because using six different models, and you can see that the outputs they do not differ very much. And then rainfall as well, or precipitation from the six models still, the global section models. So you can see here, places with more than 20 millimeters of rainfall. And you can see that if you look at the key, you find that you've got areas which are greenish, and then those are the areas of high rainfall. Then you've got those which are brownish, brown patches, area of low rainfall. As you can see that here, Botswana is not very obvious, but probably only one model here. It depicts quite well. And then if you look at the left, because these are just the number of rain days. So obviously Botswana does not have a lot of rainfall days really. But if you look at this one really shows you how the rainfall is going to fare, has been faring. And you can see here that we do have a lot of brown patches on each of these maps, which really show that those areas are deficient in terms of rainfall. And you can see that Botswana, in all models, is shown to be one of the countries which have got, which are among those which have got the lowest rainfall in Southern Africa. So, and of course, the consequences, when the rainfall is surplus, of course, you get flooding. You can see the Ramotswa graveyard, the Taung graveyard here, which can be covered by rain. So you can see this is a water hole in the Kalahari, which has dried up. And of course, one of the consequences, of course, is human-wildlife conflicts. Which you get elephants here that bring down the fence because they need to go and get water in a private farm. So just jumping from where they were because there's no water. So some of the consequences. So now, in the case of climate change in Botswana, we have just seen the maps, we've seen the projections, and we've seen the underlying causes and the dynamics. So frequency intensity of precipitation is one of the major indicators. This is going to impact heavily on agriculture and livestock production and water availability. I think those are the two sectors really which are hard hit by climate change. And all government programs to mitigate the impacts, they should target mainly those two sectors most. And then the frequency intensity of drought, which also affect the agricultural production, livestock production, and water availability as well. And we are seeing changes in rainfall patterns, the onset and cessation of rainfall, which also affects the length of the growing season in agriculture. And then we see the frequency of extreme weather events. It could either be heat waves, which affect crops, vegetable, livestock. This also affects solar batteries and solar cells. I know Kokalaga, the way they use solar, they be complaining that there are solar batteries that are being affected by heat waves. And you find that sometimes the solar system, they simply do not work because it's just too hot. So that's one of the challenges, of course, of using solar energy in a very hot country. Maybe some of you might want to debate on it. Then we've got flash floods, of course, which have been recorded in the last decade. They destroy infrastructure, rangelands, also the interfere with mobility and ecosystem dynamics. Hailstorms as well, we've been experiencing them. Some crops have been killed by hailstorms, infrastructure, livestock, and human property. That's where loss and damage probably comes in, especially when we look at the flash floods and hailstorms. And the characteristics of drought in Botswana. 2023 has been a drought together with 2002, 2003, and 2006, 2007 droughts. These were the most severe since 1972. And of all this, the 2018, 2019 drought, it was the most severe. And then 1992 was 2000 the most severe according to the meteorological data as well. So drought can be severe, it can be very severe, depending on the intensity. And then we had the longest drought period there as well. And over the last 20 years, 10 have been moderate, 7 were severe, and 4 are very severe. And what is mean that very severe, those affect the whole country in most cases. Severe ones, they may affect only part of the country. And then, of course, the spatial viability in terms of the droughts means that farmers who live in areas not severely affected by drought will benefit from government. Obviously, when government introduces drought relief, it's not very specific to any area which is hard hit by drought. If it's affecting even a certain region, they just offer a blanket coverage for all the regions, regardless of whether they may experience drought or not. Remember that drought sometimes does not affect in all places. And then you can see here, we gathered metrical data here, which shows you, this graph here, you had years of above normal rainfall, 12 years of below normal rainfall. Below normal rainfall, of course, those ones you could call that drought because it's below normal. Above normal, you can see that we've got about 3 peaks, 1974, 2000, in 2020 as well. And then this other one, which was in 20, yeah, somewhere around the 2017. That was during the NEO. And on the right here, you just got some projections as well, which will show the drought index over Southern Africa, normally using the 3 degrees scenario of global warming. Okay, so you can see how the drought is affecting Southern Africa. Remember that most of these simulations, they look at the whole Southern Africa as a subcontinent. And that's why I feature in myself. What I'll be doing specifically for Botswana and probably by next year. We should be showing these figures, but this time around, we'll only be showing only for Botswana so that we don't include the whole region. So I'm going to do a bit of that reading. Obviously, there's an urgent need for drought resilience programs, looking at what happened in 2015, 2016, where Havana Dam simply dried up since its construction in 1964. I mentioned that earlier. And we also have got the strongest heat wave in record. In 2016, most of you would remember it. We also got the 2016-2017 floods in the Greater region. And then the losses which incurred close to $1,270 worth of cattle. There's those 836 worth of goats and 97 for chicken. And 2018 also got excessive flooding in the aftermath of tropical cyclone Dineo. And that resulted in a collapse of the highway bridge in Moshopa village, resulting in 2 vehicles falling over the bridge. You can see them here, but there's no fatalities. And like I mentioned earlier, Ngamiland is one district which has been affected most by drought. I think partly because they don't have open water sources. Most of the water sources are in the Delta area. But that area, of course, is closed off by the cordon fence. So cattle normally, when the Tamaka River is dry, Lake Ngami is dry, the pressure now is on groundwater. And then, of course, I think so this is just a repeat of the slide, but this time it has got all the images that you need. So in conclusions, climate is changing, which one is becoming warmer and drier. Well, we all know that. You may also maybe realize that currently we're at 1.4 degrees Celsius in terms of temperature rise. Remember that the Paris Agreement, they're supposed to put a ceiling 1.5 and maybe with an allowance of going to 2.0. Now, the main worry currently is that 1.5 will be reached maybe in the next few years. And I'm sure by 2050, we'll have well exceeded the 2 degrees, which have been set by the Paris Agreement. In essence, the global warming is occurring at a much faster rate than anticipated by global climate observers. So, which means now we've got a very serious problem here. And for us, we suffer from continental effects. We also suffer from ancestral connections. The extreme weather events, that's also where we need a bit of resilience there, adaptation to all those, because we can't prevent them, but at least as individuals or collectively, we can do something to make sure that maybe we tend to make ourselves to be in a position that will allow us to be able to adapt to some of these extreme weather events. And of course, there's also need to increase adaptive capacity in order to achieve climate resilience. And we also need to subsist on climate-proof initiatives or livelihoods, which involve investing more on climate-resilient livelihoods and reduce dependence on rainfed agricultural systems. And then, of course, you also need to have a sustainable development policy shift. We need to mainstream climate change into sustainable development plans. I'm sure for now, the Department of Environmental Protection, I think they've moved a bit into mainstreaming climate change in all environmental impact assessments for any projects that people want to embark on. And also the Ministry of Minerals Energy, they've got this ERP program, which involves renewable energy transitions. And lastly, maybe something that you also need to do is to diversify economy so that you really move away from this climate sensitive livelihoods. And let's start to see what we can do. There were some options which can be exploited in time, maybe with guidance from policymakers or maybe from those climate action advocates. Maybe they can probably help in that regard. Having said that, let me say thank you. I hope I have not extended the time.
Yes, yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Tlhalerwa, for that extensive presentation on Botswana's climate realities. You finished right on time, I think.